Have you ever heard the phrase FIIs have increased their stake in this stock or that? Or DIIs have reduced their stake in X or Y stock? FIIs are foreign institutional investors, basically big investors who pump in money from abroad into the Indian stock market. And DIIs are domestic institutional investors like mutual funds, banks, insurance companies, pension and provident funds, etc. They have a lot of money at their disposal, and together with FIIs, these institutional investors hold a lot of influence over our stock markets. I mean, simply because of how much money they have to invest. And Life Insurance Corporation, or you may better know them as LIC, is the biggest domestic institutional investor in the Indian stock market. Let's check out some interesting investments made by LIC. LIC is basically an insurance company, the largest in India if I may add. Their job is to collect insurance premium from policyholders, invest and grow that money for them, and then return that money according to the terms of the policy. They have life insurance, annuity, and pension products. So LIC sits on a lot of money. I mean a lot of it. And it's owned by the government. It was 100% owned by the government until a few months ago when they decided to sell 3.5% stake in it via an IPO, which again was India's biggest ever at more than 20,500 crores. So the two main jobs of LIC is insurance and investment. And since I don't know much about insurance, let's talk investment. LIC manages assets close to 43 trillion rupees. That's 43 lakh crores. 20% of this is invested in equities while the rest in bonds. To put it another way, it manages more money than the entire mutual fund industry combined and holds more government bonds than RBI. Now, over the years, there have been claims that LIC has been used by different governments to bail out loss-making public sector companies. The most recent being IDBI Bank. And that's a serious accusation, because if the money of primarily middle-class Indians is being used to bail out inefficiently run PSUs, then one day Indians won't be able to trust the biggest insurer anymore. And I assume it's precisely this reason why LIC shares won't do well. Because in a way, they have an unwritten mandate to support the government in its investments. Its share price is already down by 1/3 since its IPO in May. Most likely, the only incentive for investors will be the dividend LIC gives its shareholders. LIC's biggest investments are the three biggest business groups in India. They've invested 1,10,000 crores in Reliance Industries. Their investment in 9 listed firms of the Tata Group totals 88,500 crores, and their investment today is worth about 77,500 crores in 5 listed Adani stocks. Here are the other groups they put their money behind, which rounds up the top 10 investments. Figures have been rounded off for simplicity. Insurance is a long-term investment, and LIC has to view their investment from a 20-year perspective in order to settle various claims of customers. Of course, there are exceptions where they invest for shorter periods as well. The interesting thing here is that LIC has been an investor in Reliance and Tata groups for over several years, but they began accumulating Adani shares only recently. The Adani group has a very opaque shareholding structure. Majority of its stake is held by promoters and a bunch of foreign portfolio investors or FPIs, whose transparency was recently questioned. Some analysts think that it's an insider's game because there are very limited number of public shareholders. Maybe his latest follow-on public offer of 20,000 crores just a few days ago addresses this issue a little bit. An FPO, by the way, is when an already listed company sells shares to the public, but not via an IPO. But I guess that's why domestic institutional investors, mutual funds, and retail investors, barring a few adventurous ones, have for the most part stayed away from Adani stocks. LIC has invested in 5 Adani Group stocks. And this is the part I find interesting. LIC accounts for over 81.7% of total DII investments in these 5 Adani Group stocks. Another way to look at the same issue is LIC's investment in Adani Group companies, as I mentioned earlier, is 77,500 crores. This is almost 5 times more than what all mutual funds combined have in the same stocks. Yet another way to look at it is, a year ago, LIC's Adani Group exposure stood at 32,100 crores, which is now worth. Part of this, of course, is because their share price has gone up as well. Anyways, these are the 5 Adani Group stocks LIC has invested in. Adani Group stocks have done well over the past few years, and LIC has benefited from investing in them big time. LIC's biggest investment in an Adani company is Adani Enterprises, which has given a mammoth return of 2,633% in 5 years, which is probably why LIC has been buying its shares even more in the past 2 years. It's taking a bet on its business and expansion plans in new sectors like airports, roads, data centers, and cement. And not only shares, but LIC also invests in bonds of Adani Group companies, by the way. While the going is good, no one can question LIC's investment strategy. But let me tell you about the other side as well. An independent advisor and research analyst who has been tracking Adani Group for more than a decade doesn't believe that LIC's investment strategy is fully transparent and in the interest of policyholders. He says that LIC is holding a large chunk of shares in an over-leveraged, complicated, and overvalued corporate group, and that it's continuously increasing its stake at a very high valuation. Let's take the example of Adani Enterprises. Back in December 2015, LIC owned shares of Adani Enterprises when its price was 84 rupees per share. It sold its entire stake in April and June of 2017 between 100 and 130 a piece, which meant a small profit. Then they didn't touch it for 3 years while FPIs kept accumulating stake. In December of 2020, LIC returned to buy shares again in Adani Enterprises, but this time when it was trading at 480 rupees per share. And it has kept accumulating its shares since then, which are now trading at a ridiculous PE ratio of 364 times. That's seriously overvalued. See, Adani Enterprises works as an incubator company with more than 100 subsidiaries across various sectors. Whenever the Adani Group wants to create a new business, they first start it under Adani Enterprises, then spin it off if it's successful. The same advisor and analyst I mentioned earlier says this stock is overpriced and LIC is giving an exit to foreign investors holding stake at a big profit. LIC has been acquiring shares of Adani Total Gas since March 2020 and its investments are worth over 24,500 crores as of September 2022, which is when their quarterly results were declared. PE ratio of Adani Gas is currently 795 times. Adani Green Energy is another one where LIC has been paying through its nose to buy. While it has traded in these shares in the past, it began accumulating shares of Adani Green since September 2021 onwards. Its PE ratio just now is more than 600 times. Other domestic investors are staying away as they don't want to risk buying at such high prices. Just to give you some perspective, our stock market trades at a PE ratio of approximately 20 to 25 times. And any stock trading at PE ratios of above 40 to 45 times is considered expensive. The other 2 Adani Group companies that LIC has invested in as well, Adani Ports and SEZ and Adani Transmission, both have been successful purchases. LIC has profited quite a lot from selling stake in Adani Ports and has been accumulating shares of Adani Transmission ever since December 2015, when it had a much lower share price than it does today. And the thing is that no one can question LIC on their Adani Group investments till now because it's paid off. My only question is, when you purchase shares of such a deeply over-leveraged company at such high valuation, the margin of safety is almost zero. If anything does go south from here, it's all going to happen very fast, before you can even blink an eyelid. And look what's at stake: the life savings of millions of middle-class Indians. Thank you.
Now be the first to know about the latest updates on our new news app. Go on your Android or iOS, search for HW News Network. Download our app, choose the language you prefer to get updates in, and be up to date with the latest news.